So our next speaker is actually one of our participants from the conference. I'm very happy to have the chance to welcome her also to the podium to give you a presentation today. Her name is Georgia K. Kotsia. She is the head of public investments at the Ministry of Education of Greece, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. She holds an executive MBA from Kingston University and an MA in the Black Sea Cultural Studies, politics / economy stream at the International Hellenic University of Thessaloniki. The lecture that she will be presenting to us today is on the following topic: immigrations and minorities in Europe and the Roma in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very warm welcome for Ms. Georgia K. Kotsia. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I want to apologize for my voice. Since yesterday I had something of laryngitis, I think, from the warm climate here in Brussels. Well, Mr. President, thank you very much for the warm welcome. Members of the conference, it is a great honor for me to participate in this conference and present one of my past papers to this excellent audience, to you. I was interested on the Roma's case last year during my Master of Arts at the EU concerning the Black Sea region cultural studies political economy stream. Hence, I will try not to bore you much today. Well, the Roma in Europe, as you see on the transparency, the Roma, the Romani, Gypsies, we have many common names, Atsingan, Atsigan, Tsingan, but we have also many of ethnonyms which concern the tribes. This is the Roma in Central Europe, Sindhi in German-speaking areas of Europe, Finnish Kale in Finland and also to Sweden, Iberian Kale mostly in Spain, but also in Portugal and southern France, Welsh Kale in Wales, Romani Style in Sweden and Norway, Romani Kale in the UK, emigrated also to the United States and Australia, Manouche in France, speaking areas of Western Europe. Language Romani or Romani, close to Hindi. The Roma or Romani. Today the term Romani is used by most organizations, including the United Nations, the Council of Europe and the US Library of Congress, or Gypsies, if you prefer, are one of the largest and perhaps the most wronged transnational minority in Europe. According to the findings of linguistics, cultural anthropology, history and, in more recent years, population genetics, the Indian origin of the Roma can be considered a fact. However, in what way their ancestors came from India to Europe, when this migration took place, its reasons, and who exactly these people are, these questions all remain open to speculation. For those who want direct evidence, the pre-European history of the Roma is a matter of reconstruction. The Roma are traditionally nomadic people who are now for the most part at the limits of integration in the societies where they live. They are also traditional victims of extreme racial prejudice directed at the philosophy and lifestyle choices of their communities. Their fundamental rights have been violated systematically in all states. The Roma have been the most vulnerable and silent victims from the Holocaust era to the recent crisis in Kosovo. It is only recently that the problems of the Roma have been widely acknowledged. Specific measures have gradually been adopted in all European countries in order to resolve problems with employment, education, and housing for the Roma. At the European level, there is also an active Roma network which seeks the recognition as people without land, with proper representation in the United Nations and the European Union. All countries have been asked under NGO supervision to show more hospitality to the Roma in their territories, to take specific measures to abolish discrimination against them, to eliminate the marginalization to which they have been condemned by adopting positive actions for complete recognition of their social, economic, cultural and political rights. The question that arises from the above is whether a nation can exist without a state and without a common language. Many scholars have answered this question in the affirmative, as they know that the Roma are the most significant national minority in Europe. For your better understanding, and before I expand to the Romas, I want to give you in brief some information about the historical context with concern the term minority, because it is essential to define the precise meaning of the concept of minority and what exactly it expresses if we are to understand the main theme of the Roma minority case. Thus, I shall offer a brief historical review of the international treaties that have consolidated milestones in the protection of minority groups, as well as the conceptual approaches to the term. It is true that defining the concept of minority has always been a very difficult situation. Minorities first emerged as a problem in international law and more generally in political economic relations in the 16th century. It was this period that the first religious minorities appeared in Europe. The Edict of Nantes in 1598 was the first official document to refer to the protection of religion and is the first to offer protection to minority religious groups. Later on, in 1789, the French Revolution saw the declaration of religious tolerance, while many of its principles were adopted in various peace treaties in the 17th and 18th centuries, such as the Treaty of Vienna in 1606, the Treaty of Westphalia 1648, of Breslau 1742, Paris 1763, etc. In regard to the Ottoman Empire, see the Treaty of Karlovitz in 1699 and the Treaty of Küçük-Kaynarca in 1774. Then, in the 19th century, protection of minorities became a precognition of the recognition of new states and the annexation of new territories, as was the principle of non-discrimination and the equality of all citizens. The regional conflicts of 1912 and 1913, the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire and the two world wars brought to light many minority populations as new frontiers were drawn up between states. However, owing to the irredentant tendencies of the German-speaking populations during the regional wars and the political dispute within the United Nations, a confusion arose between the concepts of nation and minority. Thus, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 does not make any reference to minorities, while the International Convention on Individual and Civil Rights of 1966 makes only one unclear reference in Article 27. In 1930, the International Court of Justice adopted the view that a minority is the existence of a group of persons living in a particular country or region and joined by bonds of solidarity based on race, religion, language, and tradition. Likewise, the United Nations rapporteur to the competent committee, Professor Capotorti, asserted that a minority is a group of persons numerically smaller than the rest of the population of the state where it lives, not enjoying a prominent position, and whose members, citizens of the states, have ethnic, religious, or linguistic characteristics different from those of the rest of the population, and who express indirectly a sense of solidarity in their attempts to preserve their cultural identity, traditions, religion, and language. On the issue of the linguistic interpretation of the concept ethnic and national minorities, Professor Makora maintains that their national minority group has its own language, culture, and history, and its members wish to retain their special identity, while an ethnic minority group, in addition to the above, wishes to exercise its right to participate in the public life of the geographical region where it lives, or in the context of a state, and does not enjoy the same rights and privileges as the other members of the state. The foregoing lead to the identification of criteria for defining a minority criteria, which can be characterized as objective and subjective. The former include such characteristics as the existence of a discrete group, their cultural, ethnic, and linguistic characteristics, while the second include the discrimination experienced by the group, the desire to preserve the distinctive characteristics, the desire to survive, and to attain the goal of equality. It is in Central and Eastern Europe that we see the most serious minority problems, including that of the Roma people. Much of the Roma history and tradition has been preserved in oral form, unfortunately for us and for the historians. Little information is preserved in written sources. The Roma people are a European ethnic group with Indian origins. The term Roma is currently used to refer to various ethnic groups making up the Roma population and speaking variations of the Roman language. Any person referred to as a gypsy in Central and Eastern Europe and Turkey, as well as those not originating from Eastern Europe. Roma people gypsies in the general sense of the term. The term gypsy refers to ethnic groups formed from the dispersal of traders, nomads, and others from India from 10th century onwards, who mixed to various extents with European and other groups during this process of dispersal. The Roma were probably already lived in the territories of the Byzantine Empire, as you see on the transparency, those years, and the broader region as early as before the year 1200 AD. The second map indicates that in 1450, the Roma had spread all across Europe. Local communities reacted to them with suspicion, fear, and rejection, taking measures against them. At the same time, they were already beginning to face deportation from Central Europe. In the Balkans, the Roma were an integral part of the cultural and historical context. The Roma of the former Wallachia and Moldavia, the modern today's Romania, as you see on the map, lived in a state of slavery for more than 500 years. In the mid of 19th century, when slavery was officially abolished, a large number of Roma abandoned the country and moved to Central and Western Europe, as well as America. For the early 16th century to the mid-19th century in various parts of Europe, the Roma faced deportation, persecution, attempts at assimilation, bans on certain occupation and movement, as well as forced labor. The policy on the Roma implemented by the Soviet Union after its founding in 1922 can be divided in the two phases. Until 1938, they were treated as different people who had to evolve into a component of Soviet society, while after 1938 they were treated as an integral element in that society without this meaning that they did not still have to face constraints of difficult social conditions. The policies implemented in respect of the Roma have always been, in one way or another, policies of rejection of themselves, their culture and language, and have involved exclusion, restriction, and assimilation of the Roma people. This map is very interesting because it indicates the concentration camps and the extermination camps in Europe during the Second World War. It's a disgrace for Europe to see this map, and always that reminds us the back history of the European population. Imprisonment and persecution of the Roma culminated after 1938 in their attempted genocide by the Nazi regime. By 1945, almost one in four of the Roma living in pre-war Europe had fallen victim to Nazi persecution. In Italy, too, the Roma were among the victims of the fascist dictatorship. In France, they suffered persecution from 1940 to 1946. In the Baltic countries, the extermination of the Roma began immediately after the German invasion in 1941. In Romania, only about half the Roma population deported managed to stay alive until 1944. Because no accurate pre-war census figures exist for the Romanis, it is impossible to accurately assess the actual number of victims. Ian Hancock, director of the program of the Romani studies at the University of Texas at Austin, proposes a figure of up to 1.5 million, while an estimate of between 200,000 and 500,000 was made by Sybil Milton, formerly senior historian of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. It was not until 1970 that effective action began to be taken to emancipate the Roma. During this decade, numerous Roma organizations were set up. Nevertheless, in the summer of 2010, we all know that France took the decision to implement a wholesale deportation of gypsies. In 2008, Italy, under the Berlusconi government, proceeded to mass deportations. Despite the intense disapproval voiced at France's policy towards the Roma, it appears that similar measures are now to be adopted as the policy of many other states. Even Scandinavian countries, like Denmark and Sweden, have recently deported gypsies, while Finland continues to demolish gypsy camps. Even in Germany, they face daily deportations, while UNICEF has asked Berlin to give residence permits at least to those children born in Germany and integrated in German society. Gypsies have been the victims of violent attacks also in Hungary, Russia, and Serbia. You see on this transparency is from Concilium from the Europe and indicates the population that's spread all over in the European continent. You see the most of the Roma people were in the eastern part of Europe, especially to Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, and to the Balkans. You must understand all these figures, it's enormous figures about the minority of the Roma. Since 1989, various official bodies have made attempts to improve the position of the Roma. A variety of agencies fund studies to document the dimensions of exclusion and violation of rights of the Roma, or to record their living conditions. These agencies include the United Nations Development Programme, the European Union, the World Bank, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Council of Europe, as well as private charities like the Soros Foundation, as well as a number of NGOs. The European Union and the World Bank have taken an initiative. The decade 2005 to 2015 has been declared the decade of Roma integration. This initiative promotes Roma integration, however, the results so far have been disappointing, with states continuing to ignore or failing to complete measures leading to full Roma integration. The European Union is the largest international donor to improve the situation of Roma communities. The last 3 years provided more than 57 to 67 million through the FAIR projects on housing and living conditions of Roma in Hungary, Slovakia, Bulgaria, and Romania. Also, we have the European Parliament, in collaboration with the European Commission and the Roma Research Institute of the René Descartes University Paris, have undertaken the organization of conferences on school education for Roma children and the application of pilot programs. The Council of Europe and the European Social Fund have done valuable work for Roma and other nomadic groups in Europe. Their efforts have focused on Roma and the labor market as well as on equality. The Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, in collaboration with the Organization of Security in Europe, conducts various activities to assist participating states in their efforts to support integration of their Roma and Sinti populations. The first Roma organization was founded in Russia in 1920 with counterparts in Belarus and Romania. At the end of the Second World War, there were Roman populations in all the states of Europe, and attempts were made to set up associations on the local, regional, and international levels. The most important event in the history of Roma organizations was the founding in the 1970s of the International Gypsy Union, whose name was subsequently changed to the International Roma Union. The committee became a member of the Council of Europe and was later given consultative status at the United Nations Economic and Social Council in 1979. The union became a registered NGO with UNICEF in 1986, and in 1993 it was promoted to Category 2, Special Consultative Status at the United Nations. Over the years, the International Roma has adopted a Roma anthem and flag, set up committees on education, war crimes, languages issues, and culture, and so on. Through its various actions, it has set objectives such as the recognition of the cultural identity of the Roma and its prevention and development, and the combating of policies of rejection and assimilation. Some conclusions. The failure of the assimilation policies followed until recently is now gradually being admitted. Changes are needed to improve coexistence in the countries which have now become multicultural. The political and social upheaval in Central and Eastern Europe in the 1990s has resulted in a more general destabilization and an exacerbation of the situation of the Roma. In some parts of the East and West, they are once again being treated as scapegoats by politicians and ordinary people. Regardless of the policy pursued, the following two questions remain. The first involves the recognition of the culture, language, and lifestyle of the Roma, and the second, the ensuring of full legal protection of their rights as individual and as a community. We're currently in a transnational period characterized by lack of decision, hesitation, and contradiction. The current lack of decisiveness and the question it raised are opening the way to new ideas and approaches. Now, the opportunities exist. It is the duty and the responsibility of all interested parties, politicians, administrators, and those working on the ground, whether Roma or not, to ensure that the new era will be an era of innovations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Please, questions or comments regarding the Roma issue? I'm sure you have many perspectives. Please.
Hello, I'm Julia from Germany. I was wondering what kind of concrete measures have been taken for the integration of Roma, and why didn't they succeed? Was it really only on the side of the states, or was the only problem also the problem of the general different attitude of Roma perhaps not accepting the measures? What kind of problems were there, and what kind of projects have there been?
So far,
is it okay if we collect a few questions? I saw a few more hands.
no, it's okay for me. So far, nothing has been done. Nothing. It's a very difficult situation for the Roma minority. I think many countries has already adopted this program about the decade, the declaration of the decade of Roma from 2005 to 2015. But it's very difficult to adopt measures that is in the other side of the local population, because the Roma people always treated like scapegoats, okay, because of their culture, because of their clothes, or because they're traditional themes. I think we must enforce our willingness to do something for this, because you can imagine that I'm from Greece. I feel like a minority nowadays because my country is near to bankruptcy. I still like a minority in the European Union, inside of the European Union. It's a very, very bad feeling. And I know that if your neighbor's house is in flames, you must wait the flames come to your house. You must think that to regain our humanity feelings about the human beings, it's very, very important to regain our humanity again.
Yes, another question in the front row. Yes, okay, here.
My name is Adana Dragaj from Cultural Diplomacy from Kosovo. With all respect, you said Kosovo is one of the countries with mostly discriminated Roma. I would like to know in which basis you sustain that. Considering that Kosovo was one of countries who integrate the first step of emancipation from Roma community through schools and on their own languages,
yes.
And through the television program, I think so far I can remember Anglo-Nipe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's common in knowledge that in the Balkans in general we have many ethno-socialistic movements. Like in Germany, very recently we have many bad, circumstances for people like from Turkey or immigrants or in another way. Many scholars, also many newspapers refers to this evidence in Kosovo during the conflicts and during the local conflicts between political parties. I believe it's true because it's published many times, national and international. As a researcher, I found many elements with the newspapers and also from the ombudsman that followed always the topics in the broader field of the Balkans.
Okay, there was another question here. Actually, a few. Could we take maybe 2 or 3 together and then you respond to them at the same time?
One more, because
okay.
I must go to my doctor.
Okay, so I think you actually, or do you want to give it to one of our participants? Okay, so who is first there? If you could help me, I didn't see. I'll let you guys negotiate amongst yourselves. Yeah, okay. Okay.
My concern is about the integration and the exclusion of the Roma people. If we consider we integrate Roma people into the modern society, how can we integrate them into the modern society while respect their own culture and language as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, today's International Roma, as I said before, corporate board struggle for this scope to preserve the cultural heritage, but also to integrate to the social communities that they live. It's very essential for those people to understand that there exist laws and legislation frames must be followed, because I think all the people in front of the law must be equal. Okay, the first one. The second one is must be careful about the linguistic or the traditionals for Roma people, because as I said before, it's in Europe since 1000 AD, and we must know that it's a very cultural people, because their music, if you don't know, provides many elements in the after of great musicians in Europe. For example, I note here that Roma's music plays an important role in Central and Eastern European countries, such as Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Slovenia, Romania, etc. Also, the style of Roma's musicians has influenced European classical composers, such as Franz Liszt and Johannes Brahms. Well, I think all of the minorities have to offer to us, to the other people, many, many things. And it's time to think about our future as human beings. It's very important. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention.